I wrote this piece up, it's up on my webpage, and my whole purpose was to get into the fact that, as we know, blindness is a spectrum, and most people have remaining vision. Very rare to have zero light perception, which creates its own problems. And then the cane, great, but creates its own problems. I wear glasses. Very confusing when you say to somebody, "Oh, I'm blind." Why are you wearing glasses? Because all they think is you have no sight, of course.
Right.
So I gave this story about an example about how, like, when you travel, right? So we go to the airport, out comes my cane, I get whisked through security, often pulled right through the special line, barely checked, they help me there, which is great. And then I cane my way up to my gate, where I sometimes have been set aside because I'm in the system, right? And I get put into a special room or special seating, and I board first. I can feel everyone looking at me because I'm wearing glasses and because I, quote, don't look like I'm blind, whatever that means.
Right.
And you get on the plane, I sit down because I'm first. I sit down, I fold up the cane, put it away, and I whip out my phone and I start looking at my phone as people are going by, and I can feel it. I know what they're thinking. That guy just faked his way onto the plane so he can board first.
Yes.
And it's like, I want to stand up and just like start talking to people. Not get mad. I just want to help educate, make people understand. It's just my mission in life.
Yeah.
It's my mission. But you feel it. You feel as they're going by. Their eyes are burning into you.
Yeah. Maybe we should have like a little business cardish kind of thing to just hand people with a little blind education. I thought of doing that for Ollie, and because everybody comes up and talks to us, and they don't think I'm actually blind. They think I'm there with my pet, and why do you have a dog here? And and just all kinds of interesting conversations.
The story in my family is when my parents had got married, and this is in the mid-60s, and started a family. They had their first son, Bob, who I work for, actually. And Bob, no eye disease, everything's fine. 10.5 months later, they had Christopher. And that's my middle brother. And of course, I'm not here yet, so Christopher is here. And it all comes down to a cup of water. This is how at least the eye disease was figured out, that something was not right. And my mom would come in to give Chris his cup of water before he went to bed as a little boy. And he wouldn't reach for it the way Bob would, because Bob could see it. And of course, this is nighttime, and it was dark. It was dark, so it's worse. And so she knew something was wrong. Long story short, now that's a long time ago, the mid to late 60s, but it's a lot different now. But my mom really advocated, and they started to figure out that something was wrong with Chris's eyes. And so when I came onto the scene a few years later, three or so years later, at that point they had already been checking Chris, and they checked me and everyone else, and we knew right off the bat. I think originally they went to a retina doctor in New York. I have no memory of that, but we started with Mass Eye and Ear in the very, very early 70s, 1971. So yeah, I was 2 years old, and but early on, when I was a young kid, I did all the games outside. I played Ghost in the Graveyard and kicked the can, and I would trip over bushes, and occasionally, I had to know where the trees were, and things like that. But it didn't limit my life too much. Of course, like we all know, when you turn 16, driving, I drove during the day, but I never drove at night. So proms or this and that, I had to have my parents drive me, or the date. I wrote this piece of it, it's up on my webpage, and my whole purpose was to get into the fact that, as we know, blindness is a spectrum, and most people have remaining vision. Very rare to have zero light perception. Which creates its own problems. And then the cane, great, but creates its own problems. I wear glasses. Very confusing when you say to somebody, "Oh, I'm blind." Why are you wearing glasses? Because all they think is you have no sight, of course.
Right.
So I gave this story about an example about how, like, when you travel, right? So we go to the airport, out comes my cane, I get whisked through security, often pulled right through the special line, barely checked, they help me there, which is great. And then I cane my way up to my gate, where I sometimes have been set aside because I'm in the system, right? And I get put into a special room or special seating, and I board first. I can feel everyone looking at me because I'm wearing glasses, and because I, quote, don't look like I'm blind, whatever that means.
Right.
And you get on the plane, I sit down because I'm first. I sit down, I fold up the cane, put it away, and I whip out my phone and I start looking at my phone as people are going by, and I can feel it. I know what they're thinking. That guy just faked his way onto the plane so he can board first.
Yes.
You know, and it's like I want to stand up and just like start talking to people. Not get mad. I just want to help educate, make people understand. You know, it's just my mission in life.
Yeah.
You know, it's my mission. But you know, you feel it. You feel as they're going by. Their eyes are burning into you.
Yeah.
You know, like,
maybe we should have like a little business cardish kind of thing to just hand people with a little blind education. I thought of doing that for Ollie, and because everybody comes up and talks to us, and they don't think I'm actually blind. They think I'm there with my pet, and why do you have a dog here? And you know, and just all kinds of interesting conversations.
The story in my family is when my parents had got married, and this is in the mid-60s. And started a family. They had their first son, Bob, who I work for, actually. And Bob, you know, no eye disease, everything's fine. 10.5 months later, they had Christopher. And that's my middle brother. And of course, I'm not here yet, so Christopher is here. And it all comes down to a cup of water. This is how at least the eye disease was figured out, that something was not right. And my mom would come in to give Chris his cup of water before he went to bed as a little boy. And he wouldn't reach for it the way Bob would, you know, because Bob could see it. And of course, this is nighttime, and it was dark. It was dark, so it's worse. And so she knew something was wrong. Long story short, now that's a long time ago, the mid to late 60s, but it's a lot different now. But my mom really advocated, and they started to figure out that something was wrong with Chris's eyes. And so when I came onto the scene a few years later, three or so years later, at that point, they had already been checking Chris, and they checked me and everyone else, and we knew right off the bat. I think originally they went to a retina doctor in New York. I have no memory of that, but we started with Mass Eye and Ear in the very, very early 70s, 1971. So yeah, I was 2 years old, and but early on, when I was a young kid, I did all the games outside. I played Ghost in the Graveyard and kicked the can, and I would trip over bushes, and occasionally, I had to know where the trees were, and things like that. But it didn't limit my life too much. Of course, we all know when you turn 16, driving. I drove during the day, but I never drove at night. So proms or this and that, I had to have my parents drive me, or the date. And
did your vision loss happen in noticeable increments where all of a sudden one day there was just less vision?
Until I got into my 40s, I would say, I felt relatively stable. And looking at the data, it kind of was relatively stable. And so then when I got into my 40s, I started to feel like it was declining quicker, and I think it was. And it picked up later in my 40s, and now I'm 53. It definitely progressive. It's hard for me to actually recall probably accurately if, like, when I was 27, maybe I really did feel like it was changing at that time. I don't have memory of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a great success strategy, is to just focus only on the positive and power forward.
Right. Right. It's definitely one of my just driving forces and messages, is that I really do try to focus on here and now. And you, as we all know, you can't change the past, and you can't do anything about the future. Right. And so I try. It's not easy. And actually, it's kind of getting harder, but I try my hardest to stay present. And I think you can be happy if you do that.
Exactly.
Happier at least.
Yes.
It's not easy. It's not easy for anybody. Just even normally sighted people. It's just to stay focused. But it's what we have, and right now is important. Right.
Yeah. I love that outlook.
My wife and I, we laugh because sometimes I feel it kind of affects my memory. And I also have a theory on memory loss and vision loss. I believe there's a correlation there. But I focus so much on today. I have trouble sometimes remembering, just not too long ago, because I let it go. It's gone, even, good stuff, until I'm reminded. And then, of course, I remember it. But I just really want to focus on right now.
Right. Yeah. No, there's great value in that. And even for people who have vision, and vision loss isn't their issue, there's a valuable takeaway there on how to move through, because everyone does have some kind of challenge.
Yes.
And life is incredibly hard at times for some people, and so
absolutely
to have that positivity to power forward regardless is of great value.
When you strip it all away, I really just feel blessed. I'm thankful. Sometimes people ask me, if you could wave a wand and never be born with this eye disease, would you? And I'm not so sure I would.
Yes.
Because I think I would have been a different person.
Yes.
And from what I'm told, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but I think I'm a decent human being.
Yes.
I do, like you, would do a lot of volunteer work, and I stay active in that, and I like that. And the vision loss, I've written about it, the vision loss has helped me stay present. As weird as that sounds, I'm not so sure I would change it. I've been able to still do almost everything that I wanted to. I have traveled to Africa 5 times. I'm now a scuba diver. I've been in rock bands since 1995. I'm still in a band.
Are you?
Oh yeah, still in a band. Just played last weekend in Avon. I mean, so it takes, as you know, we all need help. It takes people to understand. I use a lot of flashlights and things to help me set up, and I have to do some things that others might, not want to do. They might feel embarrassed, but I have to do it. And if I want to do what I want to do, I have to adjust.
I was hoping that we could each take a moment and explain what our vision is like. And I'm starting with you, Susanne.
It started when I was 11 years old, and bit by bit through my lifetime, just a little more vision would be erased. I have lost central vision first, and peripheral vision is how I have navigated my life. So people who've known me have observed that I might be looking away from them to see them. And sometimes it has been very confusing for people.
It's amazing how different vision loss is for everybody. And that's one of my messages when I'm out there talking to people. It manifests differently for everyone. Now, I have retinitis pigmentosa, although much of my life, doctors were calling it various different things, but it is RP. And mine is sort of, sounds like the reverse of what Susanne has here. I have what people think of as tunnel vision, and it's a cave. And this tunnel vision, there's like a baseline loss of vision, but that can be worse or some kind of better, depending on the lighting, of course. In bright sunlight, though, that's a problem too, because then it's just washed out of it without good sunglasses or something. But the way ours is progressive, that kind of stuff is a nightmare to me, and not being able to recall things. The mental image of, and I sit here and sometimes try to think about things that I haven't seen in a long time, like maybe back when I lived in Florida, so long ago, and I'll be like, what did X look like, or that person I knew, and I'm sitting here testing it, if you don't refresh that brain, have you had any experience with that, or any, are there people's faces you can't recall?
I have a very developed sense of visual memory. I have a map in my brain. I have, so I tell my friends, "Oh, it's so nice to see you," and they laugh. They say, "You can't see me." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm seeing you with my heart and in my greater vision." And I do remember the faces of my children. I do remember the faces of my parents. Yes, I have incredible visual memory, and I live with that memory, which makes my life more complete.
Another area that I'm very concerned about is the safety of blind people. And now, I don't mean safety falling down and stuff, which is a concern of mine, and we all have issues there, but self-defense. You know, there are higher rates of problems against people with disabilities, and that bothers me for a few reasons. One, you know, going blind slowly, so that could affect me. And so I was always concerned in my life about self-defense and that kind of stuff. And I am even more now.
Did you know Steve Famagliti from?
I didn't know him personally very well, but I just joined the advisory panel for the State Library for the Blind, and he has been was on it for a long time. Terrible. That is just, I know you were good friends with him. I saw your video on your Facebook page just before the accident, and I saw you with him. Just horrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, it's left a real hole in my heart, and he was an amazing friend, an extraordinary person, and he was my weather go-to because he actually wanted to be a meteorologist, found it extremely difficult with vision loss, so got a business degree. But he had inroads to the National Weather Service, and he always knew if there was a storm like this one they're forecasting. You know, I hate weather drama, so I could always call Steve and say, "What's really going on?" You know, and he would know.
That's so great.
And so I'm feeling that as I think about this storm, and there's many ways in which his absence leaves just a hole in my heart and in my life, and he was a very special friend, and
it's a huge loss.
It really is, yeah, it really is. And
Susanne, can you share with the folks that will watch this later what happened to Steve, please? And I know it's very, very tragic what happened to your friend, and I was looking forward to meeting him.
Yes. We had plans for when Ben came to Connecticut. We were going to meet with Steve, and Steve was super excited to meet Ben Fox, the Blind Can Film Festival founder, and was actually going to Florida in January and was going to Tallahassee to meet with Ben. I mean, just all these plans were so exciting. But the day before Thanksgiving, he was out for a walk with his partner, and they were crossing Blue Hills Avenue in a crosswalk with the light, and a speeding car took them both out. They were dead on the scene, instantly killed. Steve collected clocks from the time he was a child, and we had a lot of conversations around the clocks, and that they're so audio. He had cuckoo clocks and grandfather clocks, and when the hour and the half hour turned in his apartment, it was just a celebration of clocks.
Great.
So when my mother passed, there was a clock that had been in my family for over 100 years, and it was actually an oak clock that was made in the state of Connecticut.
Wow.
But I grew up in California, and that was on our mantle as I was growing up, and it was my job to wind it weekly. And I didn't really have a place for the clock, and I knew how much it would mean to Steve and how much clocks meant in his life. So I offered him the clock. And he had someone just like refresh it. It was still in very good order. It just needed oiling or whatever they do to clocks. And the guy was so impressed. And so every time I would talk to Steve, he would say, the clock is keeping perfect time. Like, he just had great joy in this clock. And it meant far more to me for him to have that and to be enjoying it than if I had brought it to my home and, had it there.
The question might be, how do we push forward, especially in light of such tragedies like that, or just vision loss in itself, or any challenge, frankly. And one of my messages to people, and I of course, easier said than done, but my message is find your joy.
Yes.
And for me, music is obviously huge for me, and guitar playing, but music itself, listening to music, and I can tell when I haven't listened to enough music.
Yes.
I start to see a little more black clouds, as I like to say.
Yes.
I feel like black clouds.
Yes.
And I sort of kind of snap too, like, oh, wait a minute, I haven't, today, like, put on this playlist that I like with all the certain upbeat types of music that I like, or whatever it may be. And it's so important to find your joy, to work through these times, like with the loss of Steve, and just vision loss or any challenge. Find your joy.
Right.
It's not always easy. I know people that can't seem to find their joy. And
yes. And it has nothing to do with vision loss, right, Kevin?
No, nothing. No. It's just a good, helpful thing to try to do in life. You know, and it also helps me stay present.
Yes.
You know, finding your joy, whether it's sitting on the steps strumming the guitar, or you know, walking with a really cute dog, or you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And happiness is a choice. It's a conscious choice.
Amen. I totally agree. You know, and and it's contagious. And so I try to give that off, as all of us do, I'm sure, in our work and our play. You know, it's and it's kind of selfish because I feel better when I do it, so I get the benefit. You know, but it hopefully helps sparkle someone else's day a little bit. You know.
Oh, I agree. And whenever I've spoken to you, you're always so upbeat. You're the kind of person that makes you feel better after you've connected.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, and believe me, all of us, you know, we know we have our dark times, and it's important to have those, as we all know, and to work through them.
It helps to deepen gratitude, right, Kevin?
So much, so much, you know. And you know, it's one of the reasons I like to be. I'm very involved with the Lions. First of all, I'm very involved with the Lions, both locally, the Marlboro Lions, and that we're very small, small town, small club. But I'm also a president-elect of the Lions Low Vision Centers of our district. So I'll become president in the spring. I'm the vice president right now. And I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the low vision centers, but they do a lot of great work, free to those people with low vision. Not legal blindness, because if you have legal blindness, you'll you know, go to the state and BSB and all that. But for people with low vision who maybe need some magnifiers or some coaching, how to help them around the house, the Lions have these centers filled with OTs, and they help people all free of charge to the people. And I love the work, you know, because I like, it's fine like being on the board and going to be president and everything, but I actually like, you know, more ground level. I like, you know, Susanne, I like talking in front of people. I like, you know, not the high, it's fine being like, you know, management or whatever, but I like being down and just helping people.
Right.
Like hands-on. That's what I really, that's what I really like.
Right.
You know, and it's where I find a lot of joy.
Right,
you know?
Right. Yeah. Making a difference and connecting and and that's so meaningful. And I was invited to be a mentor in the BSB mentoring services, and just teaching a woman how to iron by feel rather than vision, and how to cook and, you know, be safe cooking. That brought me joy to give her confidence that she could do those things.
Oh, great. Yeah. And then they have those skills. They can build on them.
Right.
I mean, it's just, you know, and if you recall when I spoke and you heard me, you know, I'm very concerned, you know, most of us know that people with vision loss and blindness, you know, higher rates of poverty, higher rates of suicide, just emotional issues, you know, and that's what worries me. And I have my middle brother who has the same eye disease. He's very much on the technology side of things, and we need people like that, you know, thinking down the road and all these Google Glass and all these crazy technologies, which is great. And him and I work well together because he's very involved in that. But where I am, you know, is talking to people and trying to help, you know, the person, like you said, who can't cook or can't iron or is frustrated and might want to call it quits. And I have seen that, you know, as much as social media has its downside, I'm active on TikTok, but it's I'm called the Blind Guy Out Walking, and I make videos, and I've run across people at wit's end, you know, really just ready to give up fully. And that, to me, when it's vision loss based, I get it, but I will do anything I can to, I've talked to people, I've been on the phone with people, they reach out to me. You know, the last thing I want is someone to end their life over vision loss. It's not the end of your life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that when people are maybe a little older and they start experiencing vision loss, it's so much harder to adjust.
Yes.
and have known someone who was terrified to ride in the car because she could no longer see where the car was going, and she was like a cat on a, just hanging on, and the feeling of not being able to see, and not just let go and trust in the driver was traumatic for her, and so I think having a lifetime of experience with vision loss, it has not been easy, and each time my vision would plateau and then just suddenly drop off. And I was crashing into furniture that I could walk around the day before.
Wow.
And it was literally like falling off the abyss. It was very hard emotionally. And then I would have to rebalance and readjust. And that was somewhat terrifying. And,
I'm sure.
That was my process. But in that experience, it built a lot of strength, just like any avenue that we pursue strength. If it's muscle building, we're tearing down muscle to get stronger.
That's right.
And so through that process, I developed courage and strength for the situation. And
it's just a point of information. My brother and I, back right before COVID, it was 2018 or 19, we had a low vision conference that we put on in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with a third person. I don't know if you've ever heard of Sunu bands. They're okay. Well, one of the founders is good friends of ours. Fernando Abatorio, sure. And so he was part of it. Me, my brother, and Fernando. We put together this low vision conference, and with Fernando, and we held it up there in Cambridge. It was awesome, and it was so great to help. We had a good crowd. Even there was a massive storm the night before that knocked out power in the Boston area. But we still had a really great turnout, and it was a great educational opportunity. Fernando, of course, is talk about a ball of energy. He's great, and but it's so important, just the education side, handing out your card and talk. I just want people to be, again, ask me. Just ask me. I'll help you understand, and I'll be very kind.
Exactly.
Get the word across.
Yeah. Well, I've never known a lot about the Lions, and I've always known they are very supportive of vision and vision loss. But I'd love to learn more about the work you're doing, and some of the things that are around, just to be supportive to others and to the community. So.
The Lions do a lot of great work. We raise a good deal of money, especially considering our size here in town. We hold, pancake breakfasts and road races and all this. And all the money we raise, we give away. We are big supporters of Fidelco, lots of Besby, Chris Radio in Connecticut. If a person doesn't know what Chris Radio is, it stands for Connecticut Radio Information System. And there's a few studios, I think it's like 4 or so in Connecticut that they broadcast from. And you have a special radio or online, and they broadcast 24 hours a day. And they read the news, they read the obituaries, they read stories, history, and it's a wonderful tool for people that are not just visually impaired, intellectually, impaired, anything. And so it's a really great service, and I know they need money, so we definitely help support that, and a lot of other causes. We do local things here in town and help people outside of vision loss. We've done things outside of vision loss. I, of course, am fond of doing things in the vision area because that's kind of my area, but I like just to be of help. So it's good. And then, of course, the low vision centers do much more, and that is really important work that is really hands-on. I mean, we are helping the low vision community directly, and a lot of challenges there. Especially as the incoming president, I'm going to have my challenges before me, but it's always usually about resources. We need to keep raising resources so that we can help, because we do have a direct impact on people with low vision. It's not, you're sending money off somewhere and you're not sure what happens. It's people of our state, and they get direct help. So it's really, I really like that. And myself, I do a lot of talking around the state. It kind of got slowed down there with COVID, of course, but I love to go around to senior centers. I've spoken at Besby. I've spoken to low vision groups. Before I was even on the board of directors for the low vision centers, I spoke to the board of directors of the low vision centers at their annual meeting. I have a podcast, the Kevin McNally Show, where I talk about a lot of things, but much of it is vision related, trying to help people, sometimes in a funny way, understand vision loss, or I highlight certain things about vision loss or stories or laws sometimes, trying to get rid of myths that people have about some like the white cane. People have some misunderstanding about the white cane and your use of it. So I do a lot there, on my webpage and giving talks. And, I really want to eventually end up full-time doing advocacy. I can do policy work. I'm a lawyer, so, I have some abilities there with a large organization. This past December 1st, I was featured in the National Federation of the Blind. I wrote an article called "I'm Waiting to Go Blind," and they picked it up and printed it in their Braille Monitor magazine. And so that was kind of a high point for me at the end of this year. I was really happy because they do a lot of work, and I was happy to be mentioned in there, and hopefully some people will read it. It's a really interesting take on our vision loss.
Right.
And so, very active, try to stay active, and just like all of us, maintain our families and maintain our pleasures and things we like and everything else. But
that's wonderful, Kevin. Do you have some knowledge of the surgery for RP? Are you able to talk about that?
I can, yeah. So a few years ago, family, like I'm sure you both understand, family members will send you articles when something pops up, right? Oh, look at this, right? And so you get these articles, and great. And I had heard about this Spark Therapeutics and this gene therapy that they were working on, like about 4 years ago. I probably first heard about it, and it showed possibilities, improved night vision, possible, arresting of the progression. And that was great. People are like, "Oh, you should get this," right? That's always except it was just about $1 million. So I'm like, well, that's great. So the years kind of went by, and more articles get sent to me. And so a few years ago, like 2 years ago, I was up at my retina doctor up in Massachusetts, and they asked if I would do some genetic testing. Sure. So they tested me, and they ended up testing my dad, my mom, my brother, of course, because he has it. And long story short, we find out that we do have this gene. It's the RPE65 gene. This is the specific gene that this specific therapy works on. Supposedly, there's only 2,000 people that actually have this gene in both copies, meaning both parents. And we're two of them, my brother and I. So, that's great. But the surgery is still $850,000. So we've had some negotiations, and there's going to be some assistance and this and that. So I don't want to give too much away. My brother, it's his healthcare, but I can tell you that he's going to, I believe, get the surgery, and I'm going to be eyeing him very closely. I am up for my final medical checkup with Mass Eye in January, early January. And if, I'm sure I assume I'll be approved, since I know my brother was, and he's older than me. So I assume with my vision, I'll be approved. Honestly, the biggest issue I have now is if I do get approved, and I think I will I do it? Because some of the side effects, glaucoma, well, I have that. I'm already on drops for glaucoma. He does not, my brother. Cataracts. I have the beginning of cataracts. He does not have that. And the third one is complete blindness, loss of central vision. Now that's a problem. I'm in the position I'm in, like we discussed. I read for a living. I still am working. I haven't won Powerball. I'm working on that, but it hasn't come through yet. And so, I can't afford, just in general, not just financially, but just in life, to have that as a side effect. So, and they have to detach the retina to put the medicine, some of the medicine behind your retina. That's, a little nerve-wracking.
Scary stuff, right?
It's a little scary stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't honestly know what I'm going to do. It's just, I've been thinking about it, praying on it, doing a lot of things, talking to people. I asked that question on TikTok. What would you do? And I get some really interesting answers from people. Heck no, or absolutely. They start with the bad eye because my brother and I each have a worse eye, and they start with that eye. But I'm going to watch my brother closely, and we'll see what happens with him, and then I'll make my decision. But if it happens, it will be next year, and I'm sure probably in the spring. But it's very nerve-wracking. It's wonderful that it's out there, and increase. You have to do this balance, this calculation. Okay, I'm 53, right? How long am I going to live? No idea, of course. What's the vision loss? Will it pick up 3% a year or so? Okay, what does that mean? If I live to 100, when will all my vision really just get to a point where I can't do anything with reading, or maybe I have to use technology to do it? But when will that happen versus getting the surgery and the risk of possible side effects that could be devastating. And I'm a little nervous because I already have glaucoma and cataracts, whereas my brother, for some reason, does not. And so it's like I already have 2 out of 3. I really don't want to push the issue, but then again, how long are you going to live versus the benefits of possibly getting a surgery?
Right.
I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, it's awesome that there's an option developing.
Oh, and,
5 years from now, 10 years from now, who knows how it will have progressed.
That's right. And it's fantastic that these companies are doing this. Luck of the draw that we are so spot on for what they're looking for, and that's great. And they've been nothing but fantastic. The companies involved, Mass Eye and Ear, the company that created it, they've been excellent. It's just a big personal decision, one of those. There's just no easy answer.
Right.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
But I do know that if I do get the surgery and I lose all my vision, the remaining central vision, I know life isn't over. Right. It's my own message, and I have to kind of abide by it.
Right.
It'll be an adjustment like everything else in life.
Right. Yeah. I understand for sure.
Yeah. It's
serious business, though.
Oh man. Yeah. I lose sleep over it. It's just a challenge. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's this little tiny part of me that says, "Oh, I hope they medically don't clear me," because then I don't have to make the decision. Because it's such a tough decision.
Right.